With the Lakers losing to the Blazers on Tuesday, they're now in an 0-1 hole to an 8 seed in the first round, which rightfully has a lot of people panicking, but not me. I'm not ready to panic. And no, I know that said, we can't be in denial anymore because the team is flawed, and it's a mistake to ignore these flaws, especially since LeBron is not in the East anymore. It's a Western Conference playoffs, which are much tougher, and Portland is a fully healthy and unusually talented team for an 8 seed, and we can't just expect LeBron to play superhero and just cover up all the Lakers' flaws, because we know they're flawed, and bubble basketball has completely changed the game. Forget the pumped-in crowd noise or the virtual fans on Zoom, because without home court advantage, you can't lean on your home fans for some energy that you would usually get. So you got to make up for that with a quick start and playing good defense, which I actually do think the Lakers are doing, having held Portland to 100 points in the first game and keeping Dame pretty quiet for most of the second half until he got hot at the end. Now, there are definitely some things that Frank Vogel needs to tweak, but I think the biggest concern is obviously with the offensive struggles and the poor shooting. And frankly, I don't think this team will shoot that bad for this long. Danny Green's shooting struggles in particular stick out, especially with how ruthless Lakers Twitter has been towards him. But part of it makes sense because shooting 45.5% from 3 last year was the reason the Lakers signed him to be that 3-and-D piece to a championship team. But this year it's been a lot different for him. He was 2 of 8 in Game 1, which puts him at 9 for 36 since returning to the bubble, and 25% is just not going to cut it. Now, I'm not saying he has to be the best 3-point shooter in the league, but he's obviously got to be better than what he's been so the Lakers can start turning the corner and looking like a better team. And I'm actually glad, though, that he says he hasn't lost his confidence and that he's not hesitating to take shots either, because as the phrase goes, shooters shoot, and Danny Green's definitely earned that reputation. I think Frank Vogel's confidence in Danny Green is important too, but at the same time, Vogel has to understand that Danny Green's leash can't be too loose on his off nights. And then without Avery Bradley, that leaves you with J.R. Smith and Dion Waiters, who were both specifically signed for their ability to create their own shots. And this is the playoffs, so it's all hands on deck. We know JR's got that playoff experience, and Dion Waiters has proven that when focused, he can be very capable of putting up numbers. So when it comes to the Lakers' backcourt, defense is obviously important, but if guys are having an off night, Vogel's got to be able to go to the bench and those proven scores to fix the offensive struggles. Speaking of offensive struggles, it wasn't a great night for Caruso either, going 1 for 6, and he isn't your prototypical distributor, but the Lakers are clearly a better team when he's on the floor. Him and Markieff Morris were both plus 12 on the night, which was tied for the best among all Lakers. And as far as adjustments go, I would say Vogel has to get those 2 more minutes, but most importantly, AD's got to play the 5 more. Now, in my opinion, I actually think Hassan Whiteside was a bigger difference maker in Game 1 than Damian Lillard. He clogged up the paint, he was blocking shots left and right, but the thing that we saw was that Whiteside obviously can't guard at the perimeter. So even though the Lakers like to use their size advantage against most teams, this is not the time against Portland. AD is a unicorn, he's a natural power forward, but he's got to be playing the 5 a lot more and getting to his moves before the double teams come. And doing so allows him to exploit more of these mismatches in both the perimeter and the paint. And what it also does is it allows Kuzma to slide to the 4 and get more minutes. Now, these crucial missed 3-pointers and free throws, they're not Frank Vogel's fault, but he can definitely do something about it with some adjustments. LeBron and AD obviously have to lead the way offensively for the Lakers to dominate. I thought LeBron played well, and then defensively, AD played really well, even though he had an off night on offense. But over a 7-game series, again, I still think those 2 will be too much for a bad defensive team like Portland. And I think this tweet from Gabe Rishwain, who is a Clipper fan, by the way, sums it up actually the best. Are Laker fans overreacting after Game 1? The Lakers did shoot 5 of 32 from 3, and AD was 8 of 24 from the field. The Lakers as a whole shot 35% from the field. I can't imagine that will go on for a whole series. Just seems like a sluggish first game where shots didn't fall. Now, for all the Laker fans who are in the dumps about yesterday's performance, that positivity from a Clipper fan should give you everything you need to know. Now, if we're playing the blame game, Frankie Manis says he dished out a 25% responsibility to 4 people. He says Danny Green 25% because he's not scoring and fouling too much, Dwight 25% because he's a baby and fouls too much, LeBron 25% because he's the guy, and Vogel 25% do better. Okay, Frankie, I get you're upset, and I think you got some of that right, but I would take some of that blame that you got towards Dwight Howard and push it elsewhere. I don't think he's a baby for, picking up fouls on a ton of these bad calls, so I'd be pretty pissed too, but I think you do have some of that right. Dylan Wallergren says, for me, there's no excuse to not put JR or Dion in for at least a few minutes to see what they could do offensively, especially after seeing what DG was doing the entire game. Now, Dylan, I think you're 100% right. I'm not a fan of having a deep playoff rotation, but I like the idea of having a shorter leash on guys who aren't making shots, and giving some time to Dion Waiters first would be my priority, and then we could talk about JR coming in to hit that corner three. And as far as other lineup adjustments go, Frank Vogel, I hope you brought your notebook to class because Albany State professor Boomie Anderson is giving the answers to the test. Lakers have got to start AD at the 5, sub him with Dwight. AD has got to play the 5. The only thing I got to say to that is Dwight still needs his minutes. He's a monster on the boards, and I think it's obvious he's bringing more to the table than JaVale is right now. His only issue last night, like I said, was that he got into foul trouble on some really bad calls. But yes, more AD at the 5 is what I would say. Now, as far as a scale of 1 to 10, how fellow Laker fans are feeling on the panic meter, LA sports fan Corey Van Voctor says his panic meter is at a 3 or 4. The thing that was supposed to kill us, defense, actually was strong. Very simple. We hit shots, open shots I may add, we win. I don't know if it's the arena gym they play in or the lighting or depth perception, but they cannot shoot worth shit in the bubble. I agree, the defense, it's strong, and shots don't have to fall for them to, still win the game because they can play a high level of defense. Dame was shut down for long stretches of the game in Game 1, which is a positive for me, but the Lakers definitely got to be able to put up points to go along with that defense. Mike Ramos 34 says his panic meter's at a 3, neutral court's making it real hard to take advantage of the games. As far as minutes, don't mind Green getting PT, but why did we sign JR? Just to keep on the bench when we need some offense? Look, minutes allocation seems to be one of the biggest concern Laker fans have who tweeted at us. John Gonzalez says his panic meter is at a 4, but it'd be lower if Vogel's dumbass figures out that this is the playoffs. More of the same frustration for your boy L-Dub 5, but his panic meter's a little bit higher at a 5, and he says the shooting is my only concern, trying to figure out why JR and Dion didn't play. And then lastly, diehard boxing and Laker fan Michael Rueda of 26 Sports has his up to a 6, saying they shouldn't have taken Kuzma out when he went on his run. Now, I agree with Michael here. Kuz is definitely a streaky player, and taking him out when he's hot is a mistake, especially when the Laker offense is being stagnant everywhere else. But I'm not going to put my panic meter at a 6, because to me, this series is still Lakers in 6.
What's up? It's Lamar Odom.
What's up? It's Lamar Rose Jr.
What's up? This is Ryan Garcia here.
White Mama here with my boy Jake, and you're watching the Good as Gould Show.
The Good as Gold Show.
Good as Gold Show.
And it is good as Gould. One love.